approval to accept the agenda with an addendum. Okay, Judy, second. Marty? Okay, we are on to, all in favor? 2, 4, 5, 0. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Marty, we're on to board commendations. Marty Cardona will present. Hey, Marty, we're gonna back up. Sue Caseman, if you'd like to give comments, now would be a good time.
Susan Caseman, President of the Fairport Educators Association, 286 Ashbourne. I can give it to you, 14618. Okay. This way? Is that good? Okay. Good evening to our Fairport Board of Education. Every time I talk to you, borrowing a line from Langston Hughes, I ask, what happens to a dream deferred? This is a refrain that was in the background of our day as FEA officers accompanied 29 teachers whose jobs were accessed or changed. What happens to their dreams of working in Fairport since the teacher was his Fairport student? What happens to the dreams of a home just purchased, to the dreams of coaching teams, and the dreams of continuing to be with the children they loved and knew they had helped and reached? What happens to the dreams of you, board, who produced a white paper with the heart of a district in your own hearts? What happens to the children's dreams who wanted that math teacher, basketball coach, or social studies teacher? What happens to the dreams of our dynamic whole, the educating of the whole student and the circle of the whole faculty? What happens to the Fairport family? But a dream deferred means not forever, but can it be reclaimed? Yes, the decline in the enrollment affects us, but it's not the entirety of the circumstances. Board, we must have a total program review addressed by more than asking the members of a department to decide what's cut. We need a tenacious, transparent, collaborative review. It is needed to keep the dreams of all our students and those who work with them. No one enters this profession on a whim. We are committed to the children and young adults of Fairport and to a person today. All the teachers stated their love of Fairport. Board, I ask that we could continue this conversation at a later date. All of FEA is numb today. We awaited the decisions and many garnered their strength, but these are not easy days. FEA will communicate more, but for now we ask, what happens to a dream deferred? Thank you.
Okay. We will now move to board commendations. Marty Cardona will present.
Good evening, everyone. This is always our greatest pleasure at the board meeting. And tonight we're presenting for the middle school and high school art exhibitions. We'd like the art teachers and art students to come down and join us. And I see some of you brought your works of art, so if you'd bring those too, that would be wonderful. You can just come right across here. Go right across. Here, I can pull this back a little, I think. We have lots of talent. You're good. Okay. So each year, the art teachers in the Rochester and Finger Lakes surrounding areas have the opportunity to participate in an annual art exhibit held at RIT. The Start Here exhibit, a new title for the show, is highly competitive and the space fills up quickly. The show features work from students in grades 6 through 12 and is displayed at RIT's Bevier Gallery. Art teachers that wish to participate can only enter 2 works of art. Once the work is submitted, it is juried by a panel of representatives from each of RIT's school within the College of Imaging Arts and Sciences. Fairport was fortunate to have 2 students win awards from these colleges. So if you would step forward when I call you, congratulations to Essence Singleton. Essence, I have a certificate for you. Essence is a 6th grader at Martha Brown. She won the School of Design Young Designer Award for grades 6, 7, and 8. The title of her piece is Blue Ridge Mountains. It is a needle felt landscape, and her teacher is Mrs. DeChick. So congratulations. And we have a second winner from the same exhibit. That is Claire Savary from Martha Brown, 8th grade. Claire? As I said, Claire is an 8th grader at Martha Brown. She won the School of Art Dimensional Illustration Award. The title, you might have to help me with, Claire, I think, Yoshi Cephalopoda? Is that right?
That's pretty close.
Want to do it? You can say it. Go ahead.
Yoshi Cephalopoda.
Wonderful. And her media is ceramics, and her teacher is Mr. Sequeira. So congratulations to both of you. Essence and Claire, if you would be kind enough to take your pieces over and show them to the board members, I know they would love to see them. In addition to these 2 students, we would like to recognize the following students whose work was chosen by their art teacher. Madeline Anderson from Fairport High School, if you'd want to step forward when I call your name. Victoria Cleary, Fairport High School. Janet Kolar, Fairport High School. Haley Indorado from the high school. Catherine Murphy from the high school. Daphne Postel from the high school. And Mallory Edgel from Fairport High School. Congratulations to all of you. From Minerva DeLand, we have Ava McCune and Amanda Samansky. Congratulations. From Johanna Perrin, Laura Woodruff, and Liliana Rafath. And from Martha Brown, Caitlin Frank, Sophia Pasalacqua, Zila Stanberry-Beal, and Francesca Stanberry-Beal. Congratulations to all these incredibly talented students and to their art teachers for their encouragement and support. Mrs. DeChick, Mr. Sequeira, Ms. Schneider, Mrs. Steffer, Mrs. Warnett, Mrs. Ramich, Mrs. Germano, and Mr. Bryan. Thank you to all of you. Now, in addition to those wonderful artists, we have another competition, the Best of College and High School Photography 2018 winners. Over 16,000 photographs were entered from the United States, Canada, and around the world to the 38th Annual College and High School Photography Contest. All finalists will be published in the hardcover book, Best of College and High School Photography 2018. This book will be distributed to college libraries and instructors of photography, along with art and graphic designers, as an exemplar of outstanding photography. So our winners in that category, congratulations to Diana Spencer. Here. Then we have Victoria Catalano. Mallory Hill. Okay, congratulations. And Gabrielle Cristello. Congratulations. And again, those of you who have your work, who haven't done so, if you just want to take a walk through the board table there, I know that all of us would love to see your beautiful work. Congratulations to all of you, and thank you to our amazing teachers.
Usually happens is
We'll take a 2-minute break if people want to leave during this time before we start the business aspect of the meeting. We'll proceed to the communications section of the agenda. Is Kier Ball here? Our student representative? Okay, I don't see him, so we'll move on to the president's report. Peter is out of town tonight, but I have a couple of comments just reflecting on the busy month that it's been since the last time we met as a group in our business meeting. We've had several of us participated in the Nassau program. They had a excellent exhibit here at the high school. Obviously, district safety was a big topic that we had during the month, and the safety forum, and well done to people that were on the panel and facilitating that event. I watched it. I was one of 6 that watched it streamed, but it was a very good meeting. So several of us attended the Albany legislative trip as well, and I think that was informative. And I think we communicated good ideas and had good conversations with legislative leaders. The Arts and Residence, District Art Show and Art Commendations Robotics team, just wanted to recognize them for reaching the global competition. So they'll be heading to Washington, D.C., I believe, and then someplace after that. But Detroit, home of all robotics. So well done for them. We had multiple athletic achievements in the last month, Hello Dolly Play and Brotherhood Sisterhood Week. The family talks were yesterday. That was excellent as well. So just wanted to recognize how busy, and I know what all the board has been engaged in lots of activities. And it really points out the diverse aspects of the districts and the multiple levels and areas that we offer children to connect to the district, and I think that's great. I did want to recognize also that tonight is Karen's last meeting with us as a board clerk, and just thank Karen for a fantastic job you've done for us, and you will be sorely, sorely missed. I promise you that. Okay, I think that we have a big, maybe not a big, but we have a lunch planned, where I think most people on the board are going to take you out. Hopefully that's not a surprise.
No, it's not.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Okay, good. Okay, we'll move to the superintendent's report.
Good evening. Karen, congratulations. We wish you well. Thank you for keeping us in order and organized and aligned. Tough shoes to fill. To our artists who were just here, and to our fabulous instructors who are passionately leading them to feats that they otherwise would not be able to accomplish, we salute and honor all those who just participated in that wonderful celebration. By our budget and our budget process. The Board of Education and I have heavy hearts in sharing the concern for all school members during this phase of the budget process. We understand that these are incredibly anxious and disheartening times in our district, particularly for those who are impacted by the staffing reductions. We share in the trepidation that permeates throughout our organization during this extremely difficult time. We realize how this cuts at the core of our school community. Fairport is a special district because of individuals who make incredible and soulful connections with children. It's an honor to see that in so many different ways through the years. In the classrooms, as we know, are in so many places. This is why we're hurting today and we are mourning. With its twists and turns, Life can be a series of challenges and dualities, leaving us with more questions than there are actually answers. As a Fairport community, as a Fairport school community, we are at a defining moment, as Mr. Reuter shared. As I reflect upon the paradoxes that this week beholds, our Family Talk speeches provided some perspective, insight, and inspiration. See it played out with so many community members engaged in our strategic planning processes. These same people to which he is referring to and these connections will see us through this challenging time too. So I stand in front of you embracing it all. The CARE concepts transcend moments in our enduring principles for the good and even for the not so good times. This week and tonight, I see moments colliding and moments that are riddled with paradox. This challenging time. I mourn with all of you, and I am certain that we will act with a measured grace that is supportive and emblematic of our Fairport family. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Mr. Provenzano, you're also next on the agenda for the long-term comprehensive plan update. Do you want to skip that tonight? Okay, thank you. Okay, next, Mr. Stevens, we have the treasurer's report with investment update.
Okay, good evening and thank you. The report for this evening is for the month of ending January 2018. We had a beginning cash balance of $63.7 million, receipts for the month of $10.6 million, disbursements of $10.4 million for an ending general fund cash balance of $63.8 million. Of the $63.8 million, $38.5 million is invested in treasury bills, and then $18 million is invested in insured cash sweep account as well as a CD. So it's about 89% of the cash invested in those. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, we have approval of the consent calendar. We have proposed resolutions to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting on February 13th, 2018, approval of the minutes of the board meeting from March 1st, acceptance of the 2017-2018 Treasurer's Report through January 31st. We have several donations. Do I have a motion? Joyce, second. Judy, any discussion? Vote. 5-0. We have personnel actions, instructional staff actions, probationary appointments, long-term substitute appointments, parenthood leaves of absence, exchange leave of absence, resignations, alternate education academic program, alternate education spring tutors, substitute teacher appointments, administrative substitutes, teacher immersion fellow, athletic spring coaches appointments, resignation of coaches, athletic supervisor, and volunteer coaches. Do I have a motion? Marty, second. Kevin, any discussion? Okay, vote. All in favor? 5-0. Okay, we have non-instructional and civil service staff actions. Do I have a motion? Marty?
Should move that to abolish one position, and then the next one is to create.
Okay, I'll do this one first. Okay. The non-instructional and civil service staff actions. Proposed resolution that the board approves the motion to abolish the position of budget director, which is a 1.0 FTE, effective December 27th, 2017. Voted Judy, second Marty. Any comments? All in favor? 5-0. Okay. Proposed resolution that the board approves the motion to create the position of budget coordinator, 1.0 FTE, effective March 20th, 2018. Do I have a motion? Kevin, second. Marty? Question here is, what about the dates in between December 27th and March 20th?
Yeah, we were in the process of filling the position, so we didn't have anybody in it
Okay, so this was
during that
vacant.
time. We had the previous budget director
Okay.
helping out through that time period.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, all right, vote. All in favor, 5-0. Okay, non-instructional and civil service staff actions. We have new appointments, rehires, transfers, resignations, as well as paraprofessionals to be mentors. Do I have a motion? Joyce, second Marty. Discussion. All approve? 5-0. Okay. Presentations. First, we have the Transportation Capital Project update from the Campus Construction Management.
Good evening, I'm Mark Esposito with Campus Construction Management Group. So today we have the transportation facility update along with some work that's going to be upcoming at Northside Elementary School. So this will be a pretty brief construction update as we're just getting ready to start up. So just an overall budget review of the project. We had our $11.2 million $16, and then we utilized some of the 2015 remaining capital improvement project for that $782,680 to be able to do work over at Northside Elementary School and Dudley Elementary School. And these were the contracts that were approved at the January board meeting. So just to show where the construction contingency is at this point in the contracts are just getting underway. We have no change orders. We have not spent any money on the budget yet, so everything is still a zero to date. So what we really get to with the assumption that the nice weather is going to actually come, we are going to bring some site work equipment over to Northside Elementary School to be able to start moving some of the earthwork that's associated with that work behind the playground area because we have some additional storm water facility that needs to be installed underground out there. So that's what we're gearing ourselves to do here at the end of the month. Work will be ongoing over the April break. And at the transportation facility, we've been working with the district administration, Pete Lawrence and Pete Marini over that facility, really coordinating the upcoming work, looking really not to mobilize to that site until May with some of the site work over there, but really not going to be start digging into the ground until after school's out. So a lot of coordination working is happening in there. Paperwork, submittals for materials that have to be installed in the building are being reviewed by the design professionals at this point in preparation for procuring those materials for installation. So we had a nice meeting presentation with the staff at the transportation facility on Friday during their safety course and gave them an update on the project. So seems to be everything going the way as planned right now. And that was everything that we have for the update right now.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the 2018-19 instructional budget. The total budget, draft 1, Assistant Superintendent for Business, Matt Stevens, and Superintendent Brett Provenzano.
Thank you, Mr. Esposito. Appreciate you sharing that information. We're looking forward to getting that playground organized and ready to go. Appreciate it. We're here to talk about the 2018 and 19 instructional budget. We'll also be talking a little bit about our revenues. I would like to say wholeheartedly I appreciate the efforts, incredible efforts of Kate Hill and Matt Stevens, along with our administrative team in the building to put together this report. It took a lot of planning and organizing, and today was an incredibly challenging and difficult day. And I think it's important that these ideas don't get lost, because it's much deeper than the words or numbers on this page. There's many real stories behind that. So I think it's important that I preface this report with that, and I appreciate everyone's efforts in moving this forward. The 2018-19 budget, the educational priorities included a focus on the whole child and developmentally appropriate practices K-12. That's been a priority that since I've been fortunate enough to be superintendent, it continues to be a primary interest as we continue to future plan and build the schools that what we think are best for our children. Making sure that our resources are allocated to support the social, emotional, mental health, and changing needs of our children. If there's one thing that we learned throughout our budget process was a priority of all of our bargaining units who came and talked to the Board of Education. It's something that we experience on a daily basis, are those ideas that are truly impacting our schools, and I'm proud to say that this budget is keeping that intact. Making sure that we maintain programs while being fiscally responsible. The budget plan is ultimately to ensure achievement and success for all students by making sure that every student today and tomorrow has a high-quality program that's relative to their individual learning needs. We want to build awareness of the budget process and our fiscal environment. I feel the past year we've been able to get many different people involved in budget, understanding our budget through our budget communication committee, through fiscal updates, and of course through our district advisory council. I'm proud to say that there's been many different hands or eyes looking at our fiscal resources and how we budget. Our long-term objectives include managing our budget growth and being responsive and responsible to the Fairport community with reasonable taxes. We need to operate within our means, and we need to protect ourselves against risk, making sure that we budget prudently, making sure that we understand that there's variables that occur. Students move in, there's special ed costs, there's the changing needs of our students, who we welcome and who we are passionate to serve. We want to make sure that our BOCES co-ops are maximized, that we're doing our best with healthcare and labor union contracts as we move along, and of course, facilities planning, which was a big part of our conversation. This is how we can protect against the risks that are out there, and I'm proud to say that we have just started this journey as we engage in future planning and, of course, being sustainable as a district. I said it in my report, and I've been saying it throughout the past year and a half, that the students who have yet experienced the joy and wonder and beauty of our schools, those students who are in the driveway right now, building snowmans, who have not entered our schools, they deserve the same incredible experiences that all of our students have always experienced. And I'm passionate about that charge, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to do that as we move forward together as a Fairport community and family. This presentation will be primarily on the instructional budget. I'll be talking a little bit about our expenditure plan. Mr. Stevens, who has worked tirelessly on this, and under the weather, I might add. That's why he's standing so far away. He will be talking about the tax levy limit, revenue projections, and long-range planning. The highlighted component is the instructional budget. And that's where I'll be starting. If you take a look at the instructional budget, it's going to be up 0.34%. The details that help make up our instructional budget includes enrollment. And as we've been talking about, our enrollment figures have been on the decline over the past several years. You could see between 2015 and 16 through 2018 and 19, we've lost about 266 students. A lot of these losses are entering through the middle school up to the high school at this point in time. By 2025, we are expected to be between 5,300 and 5,400 students. That's a projection. And the trends since I've been here have remained accurate. Class sizes. It has always been a priority, and it's something that I hold close to my convictions and beliefs. It's been a priority of the Board of Education to make sure that our class sizes are conducive to the developmental needs of our students. K through 5. You could see that we try, we do our best to reach 16 and 17, but as you know, at some of our schools right now, there's some deadly kindergarten teachers out there who are saying that, they're at 19, 20. We do our best to manage this. These are our targets as we staff and project class size. Definitely more of an art than a science. As a result of declining enrollment, you will see subtle changes in the K through 5 sections that we'll be offering next year. But we're still going to be able to maintain our class sizes. And we're still going to be very competitive, not that we're trying to compete, or benchmarked against our neighboring districts. But the reasons why our class sizes are so important to us, because we realize you have one shot to get it right. In this arena, K through 5, the class sizes allow for deeper connections. They allow for students to interact and use their environment differently. And again, it's a passion that we believe we need to be true to, because we know that primary school through elementary school, intermediate and elementary school are opportunities for us to really interact with kids and give them all the resources and the foundations for their future learning. Secondary, 6 through 12. Class sizes, you'll see that we're holding to 24 to 26 in 2017 and 18. This year, we inched it up a little bit and went to 24 to 27. The approximate change in full-time equivalents would be a negative or a minus 8.1 reduction in full-time equivalents. Again, this is where it gets hard, and this is where the emotion's coming from, because these are all people that we work with, and these are all people that have real life situations and real life families, and none of these cuts that we're talking about or reductions are something that we're wanting to do. All these people are needed. All these people here make a difference, and they will be missed. Their contributions will be missed. But in the name of being responsive and responsible, we have a mandate to make sure that we are adjusting accordingly. We could say that no programs have been cut as a result of these reductions. Students will receive similar opportunities in all of our schools. We are committed to having class sizes between 24 to 27 students, student-to-teacher ratio. We understand that there are anomalies. Sometimes there's technology classes, sometimes there's art classes or family and consumer science classes where we need to be aware of safety, and there's resources that we need to staff accordingly. But our principals did a great job working with Kate Hill and Cass Wheeler to make sure that those needs are being met. Feel really good about that. In compilation, this could be a very misleading slide. There's truths in here. There's 29.05 full-time equivalents, and you see it parsed out. 5 at the elementary level, 8.1 in grades 7 through 12, and then 15.95 spread out throughout the K-12 area. This is where it's misleading, because when it's all said and done, we'll be recalling 12 teachers back. We will be having, in various parts, some will be full-time recalls, some will be subs, some will be part-time, but we'll be giving opportunities, and that needs to be worked out. Right now, in a very rough estimate, it's about 7 positions. Okay, so and then we'll have 8 retirees, and of those 8, 6 will be refilled as well. So that number, the actual reduction will be less. It doesn't make it any better, because who it affects is who it affects, and that's somebody's real social and personal dilemma. But we will be getting those exact numbers. I know that Kate Hill and Matt Stevens are working at those numbers continually to make sure that we have an accurate understanding of what that 29.05 actually translates to. Any questions about that? I just want to. We have paraprofessionals impacted. 8 teaching assistants and 6 teacher aides were looked at carefully. Again, anyone who knows anything about schools knows that our paraprofessionals move and do a lot of heavy lifting. And looking at how they're used in programs in special education and through the CSE process, this is where those reductions came from. We've also taken a look at our computer labs in all of our buildings, and we're still doing computer, But we also have mobile carts, and teachers use a lot of technology in the classroom. So that was a need that we felt we needed to continue to move on and grow in as a district. It does affect positions, though, and again, that's where it hurts, and that's where this becomes personal, because we've worked with so many of these wonderful individuals who've made incredible contributions to our district. Our clerical staff will be experiencing a reduction as well, as noted on this slide. And there'll be a reduction of athletic equipment managers. But again, I just can't stress enough the mitigating factors of what these full-time equivalents, what they will net out to be when it's all said and done, and we'll be communicating that as we move along. The expenditure side, if you take a look at our instructional administration, that's our curriculum and instruction, everything that's, the learning, the classroom, our staff development, our directors, you'll see a negative. Okay, that's where you'll see the impact of some of these FTEs being played out. So throughout this report, whenever you see a negative, you could probably factor in the FTE pieces. And you can see that, there's a significant decrease that equates to a negative 0.68% decrease in the overall line item. You'll see that our costs in special education, as we continually try to manage them to make sure that we're giving students what they need, has increased, making sure that we're providing the best possible program in a thoughtful manner with staff. It includes our programming, our BOCES programs, and our private placements. Private placements are schools where students go who we can't service internally in Fairport. Our occupational ed, which includes our EMCC, our Eastern Monroe Career Center, is right in this budget line. It's also our technology staff that reflects the negative 2.83% decrease in that line. We have summer school commitments. It will increase 1.29 for the school year. These are our students who need credit recovery or who need to go to summer school to support their academic programming. You'll see minus $44,000 in library media instruction. This includes an actual increase in that budget line of $164,000 to the general fund to decrease our reliance on the tech reserve to maintain our instructional technology. But this is where you'll see the computer TAs. That's why you see a reduction there. You'll see natural growth in student activities and athletics and pupil services for a total of 0.034%. Expenditures in the general support continue. The Board of Education clerk will be reduced to a part-time position. You'll see a reduction in that line. The second line speaks to, in the business office, there was a reassignment of duties in the business office, which produced an efficiency of close to $20,000. And we have our legal responsibilities, central services, which requires it's the work of our operations and maintenance, our central printing. Our IT team also is supported through this budget line. And then the special items is basically, I call it the cost of doing business. It's our liability insurance, our refunds on real estate property, or our BOCES administration charges. We work collaboratively with BOCES. There's a fee for that. That goes up 6.17%. Expenditures for transportation. You see a 9.57% increase in this line item. Specifically speaking, you'll see an increase because we will be talking about in the near future a transportation center, which will begin breaking ground, I believe, late spring, early summer. We're going to have to shuttle bus drivers from one part of the district to another part of the district. That's why we had to account for this cost here. And that's why you'll see a 9.57% increase, because it's primarily for that purpose right there. It's to make sure that our kids get to school. We're doing major work on site in order to clear the site, make sure that we can get to our buses. We need to shuttle them. There's also fuel and oil costs in there. Homeless transportation is a cost, unfortunately, that we continually have to adhere to because of the circumstances of what's happening in our community. In private schools, we are responsible to bus students within a 15-mile radius, tutoring and so on. We'll be replacing approximately 10-year replacement cycles. Now, that doesn't mean that we replace buses that are 10 years old. We have 6 buses that are 12 years old that we'll be replacing, so we try to extend them out as much as possible. Peter Lawrence and Peter Marini and his team do a great job of maximizing the use of our buses. We have 3 buses that are 11 years old, and we have 1 bus that's 10 and 1 bus that's 9 that's reached its life cycle. The cost of the the bus purchase is $1.3 million. The trade-in allowance of $32,000 with a grand total of $1.2 million for the purchase of our buses. Our community partnership with community use of the Minerva DeLand pool. The costs associated with that are $17,500. Here's a point of advocacy that we've been working hard on. I know that Mr. Buffum talked about a bunch of us went to Albany, and we continually communicate with our legislators and assemblymen and senators who make decisions. This should be an exclusion. This is a mandated cost that we are required to pay. It's the district average contribution rate to the employee retirement system, or otherwise known as ERS. That decreased slightly from 15.3 to 14.9%. And the district contribution rate to our TRS, or the teacher retirement system, will increase. So when we go to Albany, these are the things that we talk about. This is a mandated cost. There should be an exemption to that. And it will be a point of advocacy as we continue to move forward. If you look at our employee benefits, there's a 3.92% increase. You'll see that workers' compensation projections are at 11.53%. Again, a natural cost of doing business. Health and dental is a 4.3% increase. Interfund transfers. We have debt that is coming on board, or debt that we need to continue to pay through past capital projects. Percentage increase of 2.8%. And we have a special aid fund and a capital fund where there'll be just rollover costs associated with those. Total expenditures with general support, instruction, transportation, community service, employee benefits, interfund transfers equate to a 2.1% increase on our total budget. Now, Mr. Stevens is going to talk to us about the draft revenue pieces.
Thank you, Mr. Provenzano. So as Mr. Provenzano mentioned, next we'll talk about the revenue portion of the budget, which is a breakdown of the state aid, property taxes, sales tax, other revenues, and then our usage of reserves and fund balance. So first, I think I show this slide every year, but just a quick overview of the tax levy limit. So this is the tax cap that's most famously known as the 2% tax cap. Truly depends on what CPI comes in at. There's a long formula in terms of how districts may calculate that, with exclusions such as debt. The employee retirement system and teacher retirement system only has exclusions if the rate increase is over 2%. And as you can see with the presentation, that those rates are not up over 2%. There's no exclusion on those pieces. So here's what the calculation looks like. Start with our current tax levy in 17-18 and go down through with our growth factor multiplication, add in pilots, subtract out exemptions from prior year, multiply by the allowable growth factor, which is that 2% or CPI, whichever is less. So CPI was actually over 2% this year, which caps that at a 2% growth. Down to the bottom for an overall tax levy limit of $75.3 million, or 3.18%. So this is the amount the district can go out of the tax levy with a simple majority vote. So the next piece is a little summary of the state aid proposal. This is based on the governor's proposal. Right now, you can see the legislature, Senate, and Assembly have put proposals out there. The information we have here is related to the governor's proposal that took place back in January. Our foundation aid increase is about $338,000 on the proposal, or 1.47% increase. Transportation, BOCES, and building aid, a combination, a decrease there of $359,000. That's due to the expense on the tech reserve in 16-17. We spent $1.4 million out of the tech reserve. In 17-18, we'll be spending $1 million out of the tech reserve. So that $400,000 less expense results in a lower BOCES aid number there. Excess cost aids, that would be our aid on our special ed students, but attend BOCES in district as well as private placements. That aid has increased $531,000 approximately. And that's also reflected upon some of the costs you see in the special ed side of the budget. So as there are costs there, the aid comes the following year, so you can see the increase in aid there. And then our decrease in the aidable materials, primarily of $6,600. That's due to the enrollments dropping. It's a formula based for our textbook, hardware, software, and library material aid. For a total state aid increase for 18-19 projected at $503,000, or 1.26%. So one piece just that I always highlight is the gap elimination adjustment. So this shows over the course of 7 years, you could see the gap elimination adjustment. In 2010-11, the district had $5.6 million taken away, and $7 million in 11-12. In 10-11, it's important to note that we had some education jobs funding that came into to school districts that netted out that figure. And then as the negative number decreased is where we saw aid restored to districts, which essentially served as an aid increase for schools, the biggest of which took place from 15-16 to 16-17. So we saw basically a revenue increase of state aid of $3.2 million because of that restoration. And as you compare that to the $338,000 of foundation aid increase, that's truly the revenue piece that we see is the big difference when we're having aid restored in all those years.
Matt, I do want to point out that during these years of gap elimination and restoration of the gap elimination really wasn't an aid increase, although it was called an aid increase, it was just stopping the aid decrease, right? Stopping removing the money. This money was not restored. It will not be restored. So this, over the course of 7 years, was $33 million just removed from our budgets during that period of time.
Correct.
So it's a little bit misleading.
Yeah, it can be misleading. Yeah,
Right.
it's,
The other aspect that should be noted is during these years, the way we survived those years without massive cuts in the district was by use of our reserves. And that's sort of led to today where we can't continue to do that, but I just wanted to point that out.
correct. No, good point. And that $33.5 million is not money the district will see back. And you said it was not really an aid increase because it was restoring aid that was owed to us. It just served as a revenue increase in some aspect because they were giving the money, essentially restoring it at that time. So
Yeah, it was
and you
just
can-
interesting. I mean, during those years, what they would do is they would tell you what your aid was. Then they'd tell you how much, the gap elimination that they were taking back. So they would advertise the amount of total aid before the gap elimination and then subtly pull that money back, which was something that we had to live with.
Yeah, and that can be seen right here on this next slide. So that's a good point of the foundation aid. You can see in 12-13, our foundation aid should have been $21.8 million. They took away $6.5 million, so our general aid for foundation aid was only $15.3 million in that year. So that's, to Mr. Buffum's point, in terms of the aid that we lost, that they would show the foundation aid of being $21.8 million, when in fact it was only $15.3 million we were receiving. So here's just a graph of that previous slide, which is net of the gap elimination adjustment. And you can see now, over the past, since 16-17, it's been close to leveling off, so to speak, just minimal increases on the foundation aid. So we had about $480,000 increase for 17-18, and as it stands right now, $338,000 increase for 18-19. So summary of the total revenue, our property tax levy and pilots, about $2.3 million between the two of those, just some slight decrease in the pilots themselves. State aid, again, $503,000. Medicaid, flat at $75,000. Our sales tax and other revenue, which includes interest and the sales tax, slight increase of $85,000 for a total increase of $2.8 million in revenue, or 2.38%.
Matt, I know that according to the lawsuit in the state several years ago, the formula for fully funding school districts hasn't been met by the state. They haven't lived up to that. Do we understand, of that 1.26 state aid here, what is the gap between that and what actually that formula would provide in terms of full funding?
It's about $4 million. So
$4 million.
$4 million if we were fully funded. We've lost over $82 million since the foundation aid formula was established.
Okay. All right. And just to reiterate, this is law that is just not being adhered to. Okay. All right, thanks.
And a point of accuracy.
So the next piece is the assigned appropriated fund balance. So what this is the end of each school year, any excess funds could be carried into the next budget year to offset taxes. It's any revenues in excess of the expenses, and also our use of reserves to support the budgetary expenses. So we start at the top, which is how we get down to determine the need of assigned fund balance and reserves, as we look to try to balance the budget with the revenues. We have a total budget of $129.7 million, total revenues, which would be the state aid, property taxes, sales tax, and other, of $123 million. There's a transfer. We have a debt service fund, which that money can be used to offset our local share of debt. So we're proposing to transfer $400,000 from the debt service fund. That does have an impact on the tax levy limit itself, so it drops down the percent increase in which the tax cap may go up. So instead of it being higher than 3.18%, we're using the $400,000 brings it to the 3.18%. And then our assigned appropriated fund balance and reserves, $5.2 million. You can see that it's $1 million decrease from the previous year. This will show on the next page in terms of the breakdown, but essentially in a commitment to not rely on the fund balance and reserves to balance the revenue side of the budget is where you see this commitment of the decrease in the $1 million. So for a total revenue and fund balance and reserves of $128.9 million, which at this point in time leaves an estimated revenue shortage of about $812,000. And we're still waiting on the governor's proposal, or the final governor's budget for foundation aid, so we're optimistic that we'll be able to close that piece before the budget adoption in April. So the percent of the fund balance and reserves, you can see the decline over the years down to an estimated right now based on the current budget of 4.04%. So here's a breakdown of the fund balance and reserve usage. The $500,000 decrease from the assigned appropriated fund balance, plus a $500,000 decrease from the retirement contribution reserve. That makes up the $1 million. And you can see the tax surcharge reserve and unemployment reserve still staying constant to offset expenses there at $20,000 and $60,000. And then a transfer from our debt service fund of $400,000. This is just a graph to show, where the bulk of the district's revenue comes from. And you can see it's no surprise that it's property tax and pilots, as well as state aid. Sales tax, in the past we've budgeted $5.4 million. We're increasing that to $5.425 million on that piece. And then the other includes an increase to interest earnings, as well as the fund balance reserves and the debt service fund. So I'm just going to go over a breakdown of the reserves and descriptions and uses of which they are assigned for. So again, the guidance from the Comptroller's Office, of planning ahead, systematically saving for capital acquisitions and expenses, any unknown risks that may take place in the future as well, such as like for liability reserves and such. So first is our capital reserves. We have 3 capital reserves: a capital project reserve, technology reserve, and bus reserve. So these are restricted for capital purposes only. In order to use the funds, it must have voter authorization to establish the reserve itself, and then to expend money out of the reserve as well. So these monies are not available to support the general fund budget. So our capital project reserve, if you remember, we had $5.6 million and $3.2 million approved out of the capital reserve for the 2 most recent facility projects. That essentially depleted the capital reserve, which had a little over $8 million in it. So you'll see a proposition this year for approval to reestablish a new capital reserve in order to help offset future costs, to allow the district to be able to fund a reserve with any excess monies to offset future capital projects. And then our capital technology reserve. That reserve has declined over the years. This is the balance as of June 30th, 17. So that balance at the end of 2018 will actually be $1 million less than that, because we had approved $1 million to be spent. And then you'll see a proposition to approve $736,000, which combined with the $164,000 increase in the general fund for a $900,000 expense is roughly similar to what we spent in 17-18 to try to continue a similar aid flow in future years. It's a slight $100,000 decrease in order to start decreasing the reliance on that reserve. And then the capital bus reserve, the district has buses budgeted in full in the general fund as of now, so has not had to use the bus reserve over the past couple of years. So other reserves for restricted purposes. It's the repair reserve. So this would be any needs for some repairs that we'd need to do, more capital related repairs. This money to be spent is subject to a public hearing. And then our employee benefit accrued liability reserve may be used to pay for compensated absences upon somebody leaving the district. So whether it's a retirement, resignation, if there's vacation pay or sick day pay due, we may utilize this reserve. And we've done so over the past couple of years. So it's chipping away at utilizing that reserve a little. Then our tax surcharge reserve, liability, and insurance reserve. These are for unanticipated uninsured losses or claims. And the tax surcharge reserve, as you can see, we budget approximately $20,000 from that reserve to be used for any property tax refunds that we have to pay during the year. So we've been slowly utilizing that reserve. The liability reserve, we've been using that to offset any legal expenses related to our Phase 3 capital project. So that reserve has decreased approximately $100,000 to $150,000 a year over the past several years. And then our insurance reserve, which can be used for any uninsured losses as well. And then board authorized reserves to support operating expenses. So here you'll see the employer retirement contribution reserve. So that's currently at $7.5 million, and that's the reserve that the district assigns to offset operating expenses. So at the current usage of decreasing that, it'll last to approximately 2022-23 at the current expense rate. And then our unemployment insurance reserve can be used to pay for any unemployment costs that may exceed the budget side as well. So we budget about $60,000 there. So that's our requirement for any unemployment costs.
Matt, the employee retirement reserve that we tap into occasionally to help offset that, what was this reserve at its maximum?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, all right, thanks.
It might have been right around the $7.5 million. We were down to $6 million, and then we're able to fund it last year. So we had spent $900,000 and $700,000 respectively in 2015-16 and 16-17. I'm sorry, 14-15 and 15-16. So here's just a summary of our budget history to summarize everything. So our school budget, 5-year average, has increased about 3.46%, tax levy 2.5%, and our tax rate at 1.6%. Where you see the decline, the actually negative number in the tax rates because the assessments had increased significantly that year. So the tax levy is the amount of money that the district will raise to bring in. The tax rate would be the rate in which taxpayers are paying for those. So they can have an inverse relationship. As assessments go up, the tax rate will decline. And just a graph of those itself. As mentioned before, on the ballot will be the technology purpose proposition to utilize $736,000 to support technology equipment replacements and purchases, and over time, over a 4 or 5 year period, to ease off using the reserve for those purchases and have money in the general fund to be able to support technology long term. Then the next dates will be the Draft 2 total budget and adoption on April 17th. May 1st is the public hearing, and the 15th would be the budget vote and board elections. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Matt and Brett. Matt, thank you for your expertise in the budgeting area and maximizing any efficiencies to create a sustainable budget. It's more complex than I can imagine, and I have a hard time keeping up with you as you go through all the different strategies, but I have really a lot of confidence, so thanks for that. And thanks, Brett. Okay. We are on to discussing specific action items. We have board policies, first reading, 4110, administrative personnel, 4210, administrative organization and operation, and 7320, draft comprehensive alcohol and other drug use and abuse. Do I have a motion? Kevin, second. Judy, any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. We have a document outlining the school-sponsored field trips. Do I have a motion to approve? Marty, second. Judy, discussion? All in favor? 5-0. We have the annual reorganization and regular Board of Education meeting. It's proposed that we have that on July 9th at 5 p.m. here on 512. Do I have a motion to approve? Kevin, second choice. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Appointment of vote personnel. We have a specific chairperson and chief election inspector with election inspectors assisting. Do I have a motion to approve? Judy, second. Marty. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Deputy Treasurer. We are approving the appointment of Monica Shannon as Deputy Treasurer for the remainder of the 17-18 school year. Motion to approve. Judy, second. Kevin, any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. We have the 2018-19 school year calendar in box to review, or that we have reviewed. Have a motion to approve. Kevin, second. Joyce, any discussion? See that we have the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Well done, well done. Okay.
Cookie day.
All in favor? 5-0. Okay.
No, just what's in bold.
Okay. We have a resolution approving the notice of the annual meeting, budget vote, and election. Motion to approve. Judy, second. Joyce, any discussion? Okay, vote 5-0. Thank you. Okay. The resolution providing for the submission of a proposition for authorization to appropriate and expend from the Capital Technology Reserve Fund 2005 and purchase information technology equipment and supplies at the annual district election and budget vote on May 15, 2018. And we have another proposition, number 1, following that. I won't read the whole thing. However, we do have a following resolution. Okay, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to approve so far? Marty, second. Judy, any discussion? Okay, vote to approve. 5-0. Okay, resolution providing for the submission of a proposition for the authorization to establish a reserve fund to be known as the Capital Building Reserve Fund 2018 at the annual district election and budget vote on May 15, 2018. Motion to approve. Judy, second. Marty, discussion. All in favor? 5-0. Okay, thank you. The addendum item is a vote to approve the Martha Brown Middle School HVAC project bid award. Do I have a motion to approve? Joyce, second. Judy, any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Okay. Board comments? Any board comments? Okay. We'll move on. We have an anticipated executive session. Brett Provenzano, you're invited to participate. And then we will return from executive session, but we will not be voting on anything, so this pretty much ends the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Joyce, second. Kevin, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? 5-0. Thank you.
You really do well. It's like you're a pro. Really, you did a nice job.